All right, guys, welcome to 9.4 day one. We're going to start talking about square roots. So, a square root, if you guys know, is this symbol. And another way to say that is called a radical expression. So, anytime you see something with a square root, you might hear people call it a radical. Same thing. So, a radical expression is any expression that involves a square root symbol. And here's an example. Okay, square root of something. Okay, so today we're going to learn how to evaluate, which means just plug these numbers in to their spot and just type it in the calculator. So bust out your calculator. First of all, do you guys know how to type the square root sign? So on this calculator, see how it's in blue right here? So that means you're going to hit blue button and then that button. So blue x squared, it gets you that square root. And now you're just going to type these numbers into their spot. So for b squared, we're going to type -2 squared. But remember, when you square a negative in the calculator, it has to be in parentheses. So b squared. All right, then we have to hit a subtract sign. Then we have to do 4 times a times c. So 4 times a is 1 times c is -3. So you're literally just typing it in as you see it. And you should get 4. The answer is 4. Okay, super easy. I'll run through number 2 just in case you guys needed a little more help. So number 2, one more, square root b squared, so b is -3 in parentheses squared, minus 4 times a is 2 times c is -5. You should get 7 if you guys want to try that one. Okay, on to these guys. Use a calculator to evaluate these to the nearest hundredth. Okay, so number 1, see how it's written as a fraction? I would probably do alpha y equals, enter, so you can literally just type it in as a fraction. Okay, but this plus or minus symbol, that is not on the calculator. So the bad news is that means you have to do this problem twice. You're going to have to type it in once with the plus version, and then you're going to have to type it in once with the minus version. So the plus or minus just means you're going to get 2 different answers, and you have to do it twice. Okay, so let's do it. So we're going to do the plus version first. 1 plus 2 square root 3 over 4. Okay, so that answer is round to the nearest hundredth, so 1.12. And then we have to do it again with the minus sign. But you guys, the best way is just to go back up and hit enter and edit it. And then just go back over and turn the plus into a subtract. And then there you go, -0.62. -0.62. Is that okay? So when it's a plus and a minus, just do it twice. Once with the plus, once with the minus. Okay, so same thing for number 3. There's no plus or minus sign in the calculator, so that means you have to do it twice. So once is going to be 4 plus root 8, and then again with the 4 minus root 8. You're going to get 2 answers. So 4 plus square root of 8 is 6.83. And then we can go and just edit that plus and make it a subtract. And our other answer is 1.17. Okay, so super easy. Just type things in the calculator. All right, on to solving. So when you guys have an equation with an exponent of 2, sometimes it can be solved using a square root. And then let's talk about this later. Okay, so if you guys want to solve for x, the way to undo a squared is to square root both sides. And what that does is it cancels and it gives you x. So whenever you have x squared equals a number, you square root both sides. Okay, so what is the square root of 4? You guys know that is 2, right? There's one little problem. There's more than one answer. What other number squared is 4? So I think you guys agree that 2 squared is 4. There's another number, and it's actually negative 2. Isn't negative 2 squared also 4? And positive 2 squared? So it turns out that when you do this method, you always get 2 answers plus or minus of whatever the square root of 4 is. Okay, so remember, every square root has 2 solutions. Don't forget, anytime you square root, always put plus or minus, because there's really 2 ways to get 4 when you square it. Okay, now kind of a trick side to this is a number squared will never equal a negative number. Therefore, when you have a situation like this, sometimes there is no solution. And let me show you guys. So take out your calculator and let's try it. What is the square root of negative 5? Square root of negative 5, your calculator is going to say error. So when that happens, the answer is just no solution. All right, let's try some. So solve for x by square roots. So the first thing you guys have to remember is you have to isolate. Isolate the squared term first. Okay, it's got to be isolated first. So in number 1, to isolate it, you would have to divide by 2 first. Okay, so when you divide by 2, these cancel. You get x squared equals 4. And now that it's isolated, to solve a squared, you square root both sides. Okay, and that gets you x equals, so square root of 4 is 2, but don't forget, it's plus or minus 2. Because there's 2 numbers that squared is 4, positive 2 and negative 2. All right, let's skip around and do number 3. So draw your wall, isolate first. So you would add 3 to both sides. Add 3, add 3. Isolate first. These cancel, and you guys get a squared equals, what's negative 4 plus 3 is negative 1. Now that it's isolated, square root both sides. Ooh, did you guys catch the trick? Whenever you square root a negative, it's no solution. And if you didn't remember, your calculator would tell you. So that one's no solution. All right, let's do one more. Let's do number 4. All right, number 4. So draw your wall, isolate first. So to isolate first, you guys would add 11, right? Add 11, add 11. We get 3x squared equals 18. And we're still not isolated. We have to divide by 3, divide by 3. Those cancel. You get x squared equals 6. And now, whenever you have x squared equals a number, now you're ready to square root both sides. All right, so these cancel. X equals. The square root of 6 is not a perfect square, so we'll just evaluate it in the calculator. So what is the square root of 6? And let's just round to the nearest hundredth, so 2.45. But don't forget plus or minus. Remember, it's always plus or minus 2.45. And since we rounded, we can do that, about 2.45. Okay. If you guys want to stop, go for it, but I'm going to do one more. So feel free to stop here. I'm going to do number 6. Oh, God. Wait, 61. We're going to do number 61. Okay, great. So draw your wall and isolate. So to isolate, you guys would minus 11, minus 11. And you get 2x squared equals 0. We're still not isolated. So divide by 2, and you get x squared equals 0. And then to solve an x squared equals a number, we square root both sides, and we get x equals, don't forget plus or minus. What's the square root of 0? It's just 0, right? So plus or minus 0. When it's 0, you don't need the plus or minus. You could just put 0. All right, guys, great job. That is evaluating and solving with square roots. Thanks for watching.